Hello again, and welcome to the Shaping Design podcast, where we help you get better at design through stories, strategies, and tactics. I'm Mitchell Bernstein. As always, today we have Rahul on the pod. Rahul is an awesome designer I've been following on Twitter for quite some time now. I've seen him grow from a couple followers to many, many followers. I believe 10,000 followers or something like that. Kind of crazy. We talk about how he actually did that, what you can do, maybe replicate some of that success. He shared his portfolio framework. We talk a little bit about the motivation that he had to, muster up since he, got laid off, just like many of us did, and what he's been able to learn from those experiences. And we also talk about his venture into design from being an accountant, which is it's a quite interesting story and probably the most unusual that I've heard so far. So please stick around for that. And before we get into the whole thing, you need to do us one favor. Like and subscribe and follow wherever you are listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Every single bit helps. Helps other people find the podcast, and it helps us know if you like what we're doing, and then we'll continue to do it. And we're doing it all for free, so it would really be appreciative if you were able to help us out there. So it's that easy, super simple. And if you like it, please let us know. So, anyways, let's get into it. So you were saying before that you live in a place where they banned alcohol. The whole state has no alcohol, but it it somehow is selling the most alcohol, or what would you
Selling,
say?
yeah. It's the same concept of, so the reason why we don't never tell a kid that you can't have, because it's a kid, the curiosity just goes through a roof and they want it now. And that's why you should never, like, whenever you want your kid to move out of a toy, you should give them another toy. So their diversion, like the distraction gets somewhere, right? Same
Hmm.
thing here. So the reason for that, I'll give you a reason for that is that the father of the nation, right, Mahatma Gandhi, was from Gujarat and he was against alcohol. So
Hmm.
the state blocked it, like banned it, and now it's illegally sold here, and people still buy it. And there are tons of cases of like alcohol getting caught and getting destroyed out in there. But this is the reason, because once you tell people that you can't have that, people just go crazy. And even the people who don't want to have it now want to try it. It's not available, it's exclusive, right? And you want a part of that club. So yeah, that is one thing.
So I guess my only question to that would be, if you told someone something like you said no, you absolutely like the answer is absolutely no. Is then the thought process, "Oh, they said no, I'm gonna just try it anyways," like, no matter what it is? Or is there, like, a limitation as to, like, why then you should accept the no?
So it's similar as reverse psychology, right? Which you have seen movies, shows, and everywhere.
Mhm.
Depends on how like a person's morals work. For some people,
Hmm.
they are like very strict rules, right? You say tell them one thing, they'll follow it to the nose, right? They like do it as soon as possible, like as much as possible to the rules. Right?
Mhm.
Those are the people who stand at bank queues and not cut someone. Those are the people who let people walk ahead if they're senior citizens and older people, right? Those are people. Then there are people who are nice people but have this little bit of fun in them, but just randomly cut someone in bank, right? Like they're like, you know what, this is not that bad. We are not doing crime, right? So these are the stages of people here, like humans who have different understanding of good and bad. For
That's
some
so
people, for
interesting.
example, for me, if I cut you off at the line, I would feel really bad and I'll say sorry. I want to move. For example, once I was trying to get into in a plane and I was very late, so I had to cut everyone on the line and just start running to get the boarding. And I was feeling very ashamed that these people who came on time are waiting on time now are gonna get 5 minutes late because a guy didn't plan his timing right and now is jumping ahead of all of us, right? So that's for some people. For some people, that is just okay. I mean, like, this is how it happens. So when you say no, it depends on the what kind of person you're saying no to. For example, kids, they are developing, they are curious, right? So if you're telling them no, they'll definitely try to do it. Because now it's about curiosity. Second, it's about kids' ego. Like, what is this? Like, I want to check it out. What is it, right? And that's why they'll do it. Same thing as us. If you tell me, Rahul, don't design this, I will still try to do it. Might not share with you, but I'll still, because I will, see what it is. Why they're saying no to this? Like the curiosity is always gonna be there, right? So that is
Okay.
how it works. Yeah.
Okay. Because I guess in essence, there's like a different, maybe like where the line is drawn at the no. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But we love alcohol in Texas, but we're not allowed to buy it on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Like we can buy any day of the week, but just not, I think, Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. Um, but anyways, let's get on to design stuff because that's what this podcast is about, and then we can get more into other stuff like that. So, welcome to the podcast. Really happy to have you. Uh, am I pronouncing your name correct? Raul.
Yeah. The Rahul. Hul
Rahul.
is, yeah.
Rahul. There we go. You're like, yeah, and that's when I knew that I was wrong. Okay.
No worries, no
So,
worries.
okay, so I see you on Twitter. You follow me, I follow you. And I love what you're posting. And I think it's number one, really inspiring to me and encourages us to continue with this podcast and continuing with we're doing a lot of framer stuff and web design, whatever, and want to help designers grow and get better at their craft. That's what this podcast is about, and that's what it's for. And I see a similar kind of mission that you have with your whole social media presence. And I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, before we actually get into that, let me pause and back up. Tell me about your background. How'd you get into design and what you're doing now, and any of the recent events that have occurred in your life that I think you've spoken about publicly already?
Yeah. So how I got into design, just a long story. I'll keep it short. So you might not see in this good lighting, but I have darker skin, right? So in India, the colorism is there. People bully people who have darker skin, and I was getting bullied because of that. So one of my friend introduced me to Photoshop, and he was like, "Rahul, you can edit your photos with this." And I was like, "This is very, like, yeah." Now I can on also that was the era of Facebook in India. So I think if Facebook was founded in 2004 or something, and in India we started using it around 2014 or 15, 13, I guess. I started using it as a teenager, right? And obviously the biggest part was uploading pictures on Facebook and like Instagram everywhere. So I started using Photoshop to edit out my pictures. And while doing that, I went on YouTube to search Photoshop tutorial, found Illustrator, and I found out, oh, this is something called a logo, which people use on their shops, on their company. So I learning that, and slowly, slowly that guided me getting into the whole design side of things. I think that's a shorter version of it.
Wait,
And
pause, pause.
yeah,
So you said you started off by taking photos of yourself and lightening your skin. Is that what you said?
yeah, not taking, but yeah, like
Wow.
taking my photos and lightening my skin. Yes,
Wow. Really? Like, did was it like, um, I guess what I would say about that, be number one, did it look realistic when you actually did that? But number two, were were you, I guess, like, when did you grow out of that? Like, when did you realize that it's okay to be in your own skin?
yeah. So obviously it didn't look very realistic. I mean, because you would see me in real life, you would see me in photos, and you know that's a very
Right.
big difference, right? But the issue was because of the standards. I was like, this is how good looking means. That is how handsome or beautiful. This needs to be look like this, and that only this works like this. So it took me 2 years, the 2 years of my college, and in the last year of it, I kind of met other people who were on the having like lighter skin, darker skin, mix of people, different shapes, and everything. And I understood, you know what? It depends on what kind of people you're working with. There are people who have this ideology that, that if you're perfect, then only you're beautiful. And there are people who understand that the skin is not the only part of your personality or life which they're interested into, right? There are people who would just talk to you because you have a great personality and humor wise and everything. And I was like, I had a good body. I was in gym in that time, so I had a good body. But the skin was just bothering me because, again, in India, the fair skin lightening creams have been pushing this agenda for last 10, 15 years. They show a female with a darker skin and then they will just show this ad of this cream which you'll use and just become fairer skin, right? So this just became
Wow.
the whole norm where we have been growing up watching that on TV and feeling, what, we need to look more like this. But India is an exotic country, right? We ha- Normally we have brown people. That is the thing. But because of the movie stars and everything, people just believe that, okay, for to being beautiful, you need to have light skin and you need to have lighter shades of colors, right? So I grew out of 2 years, and then I like just, that was the start for me, and yeah, I'm here.
Wow. Okay, that's the most unusual, and I think unique story I've heard of how someone got into design. I'm glad that it worked out in the end, and I'm sad that it started that way, but I'm glad that it, kind of it worked out for in your benefit because you're an amazing designer. Like I'm looking at your stuff, like you're a really good design, and you're really good at promoting yourself online too. So like kudos to learning all that stuff early on. So like, okay, so now, so where are you at now?
Uh, Currently, I'm just doing independent work.
Mhm.
So when I got into Web3, my plan was to, so the whole idea in my mind was that I'm already working in Web2 for 8 years, right? And if I try to compete and make a name for myself in Web2, it's going to take me another 10, 20 years. Like I can't be Paul Rand, right? It's not possible anymore because the level of designers available right now, it's very tough to become unique in that. Even if you have unique personality, then you would need to get into content creation, right? For example, Christo, Michael Jenda, you need to get into content creation to become unique as a designer. Or either you go through the whole agency route, where you join agency by agency, then you do some bigger companies work and your name comes up in that, right? That was a web 2 route to becoming a name in the history, right? But then I was like, that's too way long, too many variables. Then I found Web3 and I was like, this is something very interesting to me. I want to work on this. And I started working with Polygon, one of the biggest companies in Web3 at that. And after like a few months ago, I was laid off. And now I'm thinking of what I want to do. And I figured out, what? The biggest power I have is that I come from this place. So if I tell you to think of designers, right? You'll think the whole aesthetic office, they are drinking coffee, working on mechanical keyboards and everything, right? But in India, the thing is that that is just 10% of the designers. The number is again like just a lump sum, but there is similar designer in India who are doing that. Other designers who do great work still works on their HP lab, drinks tea like me, and they are not that fancy, not their aesthetic, because they are learning and growing. We don't have that many good design schools. When I say we have design colleges, but they are very costly compared and everything like any other colleges. But if you see courses and institutes, right, the tuitions, they are not very nice design wise, right? So we have online courses and everything. So people are learning from online. For example, I learn most of the stuff I know from Christo because I follow the future channel and learn from them. Then YouTube, Will Peterson, everyone, right? So because of that, now I figured out, what, I want to work on content, but in uh, Hindi, which is Indian language, which I speak. Right? And I know that most of the people also speak here. So I want to learn and work in that. So I can reach those people and make them a designer. The reason is, like before I became a designer, I had two jobs. Like I changed two careers, right? I studied for being an accountant. I was an accountant for a year, figured out it's not working out, became a purchase manager in a real estate company. Did that for 3 years, figured out that it's not working, and learned design, and then got into design. So I know that there's so much talent of talented designers in those jobs, disguised as those people, right? They are disguised as accountant, they are disguised as engineers, who are amazing creative people, and their talent can be brought out just if they found the right material. So and I'm just doing freelance work to sustain myself, and other than that, just creating content. So YouTube I've started, Instagram I've started, but doing content, that is what I'm figuring out right now.
You have grown your social media presence quite quickly, actually. I mean, from what I've seen, I don't know if that's true or not. Um, how did you get so popular? How did you get so many followers on Twitter from being a designer?
Cause I got to design Twitter. That's the easiest answer. But to give it in more depth. So as I said, I became a self-taught designer, right? I was a self-taught designer. Because of that, I had to learn also how to get clients. And because I've been following Christo and other designers on YouTube who praise building a personal brand or sharing proof of work, I started using Facebook to share my work. And that I've been doing for the last 7, 8 years. But Facebook is not, again, you can have 5K people, and it's not that, what I say, audience friendly. If you want to have large number, you need to create a page, which I feel just takes my personality out of it, right? Page becomes like a business. So I was more active in Facebook groups and I made friends there. And then last year when I joined Polygon and Web3, no, sorry, not Web3, but I joined a company in Delhi, which is a no-code design agency.
Mm.
Like you design, but for no-code tools, right? And so the founder of that company is very pro product making. He's like, Rahul, if you want to get into this no-code design, you need to make products yourself, because only then you'll understand why people use no-code, right? Without that, you won't be able to feel their pain, not knowing coding and getting into it. I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do that. So he forced me to get on Twitter, and I launched my first product called Doodlycons, which are just icons but doodled,
Mhm.
right? So they look good on wireframe, right? It took me an hour to do that, and then I find out that okay, I might not be a very good product designer, I might not be a very good brand designer, but I am a good marketing designer, because that's
Mm.
I've been doing with an agency in Ahmedabad for first 4 years of my career. And I know people there because I that's just what I worked on. I worked on print, I worked on online social media and everything. And that icon pack which I made in an hour, I kind of promoted it like it was one of my biggest project in my life. Because I felt like that. And because
Mm.
I felt like it, people felt like that, and it got a good response. And I figured, you know what, yeah, like if I talk about something with this grit, people will feel that same about that product. So then I joined few communities here and there and started building products. And the two bigger factors of my growth, which I won't call growth because it was like around a year, so which is a good number, was one, I was sharing everything which I was doing. So generally, before I joined Twitter through the founder of the No Code Design Agency, I was very selective of what I was posting because I was making a resume of my profile. Like if a employer comes and see my profile, he'll like, you know what, this guy, he or she like this guy is perfect. Work, 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 work. But then that person told me, the founder, he's like, Rahul, this is not you. Do you just do this in your whole life? I was like, no, I also do these jokes. I also feel bad for this. I also rant sometimes. He's like, put that whole personality on Twitter. Because that's when people will connect to you. Because they'll get to know the real you. Again, people, he was like, your work would be amazing, but there would always be someone who will do better work, right? But there won't be someone who's better Rahul. Rahul will be the better
Mm.
Rahul. And that's why you need to focus on your personality. And that's why if you see on my profile, you'll see me posting picture of myself, which people do. Because they're like, this is a design account, I want to put design. I was like, no, this is me. You want to meet me in real life, you should check how I look. You should see the jokes I do. You should see the bad stuff I do. And that's why I started sharing my office journey or my design journey, also the process of how I design stuff. Because like I so the reason for that was, I think that there's the first part. The second part was I started sharing progress. I started sharing processes, which not many people are sharing on online, right? Because if I go on YouTube or Twitter, I follow tutorial, I see this, and then I just go to amazing graphics, right? Amazing visuals. I go to One Page Love, Godly website, awards. I see all these amazing websites, but there's no one telling me how they were made, right? And I can go to tutorial, but they are very boring. If I go to YouTube and search for favorite tutorial, I know it will be boring because they'll remove every emotion out of it. Just keep it technical, like you do this, do this, do this. Which is fine for people who's learning it for the first time. But people who are already aware and want to learn it while knowing the people, it's not possible in doing that in those tutorials, right? So I started doing process on Twitter. Like you see me building a table. I'm building a table. I'm posting about building a table. I'm designing a website. I'm posting about designing a website, right? Because how else do you create content?
Mhm.
This becomes like a normal thing. So that I think was the reason why many people connected to me and still talk to me, because they feel this guy comes uh, from where they came from, right? Like it's very similar to them. They can relate to me, right? Because they see me, okay, this guy just have a Figma whiteboard and then he's creating step by step. and now they know where this amazing graphic came from, right? So I think that those are the two bigger reason for my growth in Twitter.
Why do you think people enjoy process work? Because if you and I were to look at something, I'm sure you have the same skills to do this. You can understand how to break it down and how to recreate it. If you took that screenshot and put it in Photoshop or into Sketch or Figma, you and I can definitely recreate that thing. So it's not like technically impossible most time. Like sometimes it's like really hard, but like most time it's not that difficult. A couple gradients, couple squares, there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. So, what is the attraction to, in your opinion, to process work that people find attractive when trying to build a social media presence? Like they post that stuff and it does, you're right, it does absolutely get followers. It does get people's attention, but why?
So there will be two kind of people who will follow that process person, right? Or me. So the one is who's already a designer, right? And the thing, I think that's a human psychology thing that we find soothing when something is happening, right? So if I show you that, okay, this is I think the example would be recipes. If you go on YouTube's, people who don't even cook watch recipes because they are seeing creation happening from here to here. So it's not about if they can do it. It's just about the beauty of it that okay, it's just a long
Mm,
like a few minutes ago, this was just a potato. Now these are French fries, right? Something different, golden and amazing, right? So I think that how do I what do I call it? That beauty, people are attracted to the whole process of seeing how it works. And that's why if you remember, there was these videos which on COVID, on lockdown, went crazy, which were the house making videos in jungle, right? Because
mhm.
people are like, how can that be possible that someone make a swimming pool in a jungle, right? And then people started like there were fake people who were doing those videos just for the YouTube views, because that's how we liked seeing that. The same reason why factory uh, machines or factory videos work a lot. The people are like, oh, this is how my biscuit is made, right? So first audience is who are not designers, but they want to see how designs are made, and that's why I get good audience of non-designers because they want to see how this is happening. They might not do in their whole life, but they'll still want to see it. And then are the designers who enjoy seeing that process. And I think this has come from that same human mind that we enjoyed seeing in the processes, right? If I give you a time lapse video, I'm sure that you will stay and watch it instead of a video of me talking, right? So that's why for fillers I use time lapse. But it's so soothing to just see people move and do everything.
That's a great perspective on that. I didn't think about that at first. I want to switch gears a little bit to, and if you're not comfortable talking about it, we don't have to. But I want to talk about briefly, or even in depth, actually, your challenges at Polygon and the experience of being laid off. Because I also was laid off, and the last guest on the podcast was also laid off. And I think that this is something that resonates a lot with a lot of our listeners and a lot of designers out there too, because it's been more than just designers, like, many of the population. It's not an easy thing to do, to go through. It's not an easy thing to be told goodbye. And especially when you think you bring a lot of value to a company, you're doing a lot of good work, you're told you're a great employee, you have, this great income coming in with the salary. It's hard to kind of readjust to leaving all of that behind or being told to leave. Uh, can you walk me through a little bit of your experience at Polygon, all the good things, and then kind of what happened at that point?
Sure. So if I start with the good things, right? So when I joined, I was hired. So Polygon already owned a design agency. They acquired a design agency called Cope, and which they were working with. So when I was hired, they already had a design agency, and the design head hired me to innovate inside the agency. The plan at that time was to make a design agency inside Polygon, right? So my job was to get there, hire people, make a design agency inside Polygon, which will work not under the control of Polygon leaders, but under the control of a design lead, and then it will become its own company. Like we have, I think, there's this Netflix have their own design agency, right, where they run differently and they experiment a lot and everything. So that was the goal. Because from India, it was one of the biggest companies in blockchain, and the design head's goal was like his mind. This is what he wanted to do. So when I joined, I had full freedom. Right, I was working with every single different department. I was talking to everyone, figuring out their problems, finding it. And then the design head resigned after 2 months. So the support I had just went away. And at that time also restructuring were happening in Polygon, and which was like, as a big company, I knew that there's a process which happens every 6 months or a year. If in blockchain is much faster, in web2 is much slower and it's much faster. So they were doing restructuring. So I got into marketing design. They were like, you know what, you want to you have to lead the marketing brand design. I was like, you know what, no worries, I'll do that. I got a good team, and I was doing it for around a year. And the good fun part was that generally, when we think of Web3, right, you think about products, how you make them, and how people interact. But designing a chain and designing a communication for a chain is very different, because you can't sell it to normal users. You can't sell it to a user saying that, okay, this use dApps on this chain, because that dApp will have a different experience. So you need to sell, figure out what you can sell to the normal users, right? Developers we still can easily sell because that's B2B. What about B2C? How do we sell it to users? We figure, you know what, we can sell the cheap fees which we have, we can sell the vibe which we have, and we can sell the easy onboarding, right? So if you want to launch a product, try on Polygon. It's cheaper. Like the worst case scenario, you don't lose that much money, right? On other chains, it's a little bit in long term it might be cheaper, but if you want to just try once, it's gonna be costlier. So many people just go with Polygon. So that gave me a good marketing idea of USPs, and then we just started marketing it. So that was an amazing time because I was working on videos, different things here and there, graphics and everything. I was doing events for them because they didn't have much of a design talent in house that time, right? And even with the one we have, there were not many people who do talks and were good at speaking and want to speak, right? So I was doing that, so that was a good thing. Now coming to the layoff part, I was aware that something like this might happen, and I have already made my team aware. So the reason for that is that, as I told you, that I'm a startup designer. I started freelancing before I got a job. So I was freelancing even before I got my first design job, and the reason for that was leverage. If I have a freelance career and agency, I can always tell my job that, you know what, I don't want to do the job because either you're not giving me good agreement, either the work is not happening. Because I always have a backup to fall to,
Hmm.
right? And that's the same thing I told my designers or my 3D artists and everyone in my team, that you always want to make your online presence because you don't want to depend on someone else. That's not in your control, right? Make your own personal brand, figure out a way to expand that, and then work, do the job. I'm not saying don't do it, but always have a backup, because in the end, as a designers in today's time where everyone is a creator, you want to have that, you want to have that brand. So when the layoff happened, for the first few hours, we all were just laughing because we didn't know what to do. Right? We knew that, okay, the income source is gonna go, but we are like, we can't do anything about it. Even if we cry, nothing is gonna change. I know the founders personally, so I messaged one of them, and because I was heartbroken, like I was still laughing, but I was heartbroken because, as you say, that I'm a purple guy, right? And that became because of Polygon. I got into that whole mindset, and that's the curse of being a brand designer. You always have to become that personality of the brand you're designing for, right? And I was hurt, like, you know what, you should have told me at least. But then I figured, like, I knew the business side of things. So as Gujarat is not only the liquor banning state, it's also the most businesses out of states, right? So if you Google the most richest businessmen, half of them, I think would be from Gujarat, or Gujaratis resident out here, right? So here we have a bit of a business mindset in Gujarat. So I've been seeing these things happening, not layoffs, but how business works from my childhood, like when I was a kid. So I was already aware why this happened because I can see the business. I said I was an accountant, so I also understand numbers. I design pitch decks, so I see profit and loss and everything. So when this happened, first moment I was heartbroken because I was like, you know what, this is like there was this comment on Twitter which I think like explained this very nicely. Because I was behaving like a heartbroken lover, Like someone who's heartbroken, I was like behaving like that, and I was behaving that like for the first one day. But then I talked to a few of my friends who have been in tech. So I come from a agency background, never been into tech. This is my first job in tech and first laid off. So I talked to them and they are like, oh, this is how companies work. And in the fast paced environment, this will happen because they have to grow faster because of the investment money or the space and everything. They'll have to make tough decisions and everything. And I was aware of it. But I was very heartbroken and I was bigger, like more heartbroken for my team because I felt like, you know what, now I have to find them a job. And which you did. By the way, now all of them are working, like, or most of them, I think 80% of people who were laid off found a job and now working in different companies in Web3 itself. People like me who are on the senior level are still figuring out what to do after 3 months. But yeah, now everything is fine and on track. But at that time, it was really heartbreaking.
Well, I'm glad it had a good ending as well to that story too, and I'm glad that everyone found a job and are okay. Because I know the other situation where it's still difficult for some people
Yeah.
to find jobs after being laid off. But um, can I talk a little bit about like the I guess the bounce back, the resilience you had to uh getting back on your feet after feeling heartbroken? Because you get into this kind of like you said you're like laughing about it, you're like, oh my god, I can't believe this just happened, and yet you're still heartbroken. You're kind of like we just described like an ex-lover who can't get over the ex, whatever. So like, how did you reconcile that in your mind? How did you, like, overcome those those emotions? What'd you think? How did you build that fortitude in your head?
Uh, so for that, obviously, breakups helps. So if you had a lot of breakup, they help. But
Practice.
but not a very good, yeah, but not a very good method for people to try. But they help. And the second thing was the same thing in breakup. You had to have good friends. So as soon as I laid off, my whole team and we was just sat on Discord and just talking to everyone. And at that time, I think I was, so I'm a parent also. I have a 1.5-year-old kid. When I was talking to my team, I just went into parent mode. Right, my job at that time was not to figure out how I'm gonna react or what's happening to me. My at that time the instinct was how do I make these people feel okay? Because then my whole team was laid off. Like one of my team members just got married in Jan, and we went to his wedding, and this happened. And I was very concerned about them because I was like I'll figure it out. I'll work out. I don't have that much of issue. Because the biggest problem would be we won't make money which we can survive. I can survive at least. I was not sure about him because he just had a good marriage and like marriages in India are expensive and everything. And I just went into dad mode. Started helping them out and helping them make portfolios. Started resuming, sending their resume here and there. Made a website for people to find them and everything. And when that, I think after 2 days, when that kind of slowed down and everyone became okay with the whole thing, uh, I talked with some of my other friends who are in Web3 and who are in tech layoffs, who had layoffs before and work in tech. And I think in the end, you just want to remind yourself that you are bigger than this. There are more better things you would have been done, who could do. And this is just a smaller part. And I have this theory which I use in my whole life when I talk to people is that if you want to have a good story, right, you need to have downs. Only then you can go up. Right? If you it's just up and up and up, it won't make a good story. But people will like, this guy is flexing or this is not that fun of a story. You need to have downs also. And that I thought this was this moment. That okay, now I have a very good opportunity to go up. Because now whatever I do will make a very good story. Right? So for example, let's say if I launch a product and it works, a leader of guy launches a product. Amazing headline, good story, right? Launch a font, a guy who was laid off, launch a font. Because this is the rock bottom, right? People expect you to just shut it down and go like be down bad. So whatever you do would be good. And the higher you do, the better story it would be. Right? So when I talk to friends, they obviously help me understand that okay, you can now do this and that, you have better time and everything. And I was running my own design agency before I joined Polygon. While I was working with Polygon called Friends of Design, right? And I was making money from that while I was making money from salary, similar money. So I was not worried about the money part. The heartbroken part was there, but when I talked to the founder also, I figured, you know what? Yeah, this is business decision, nothing personal. We still talk. We are still connected on Twitter, and I still make fun of my colleagues. But it was just that it was a business decision which needs to be done, and I would have survived. It was a different department. Just because I was in a department which was gonna get laid off, I got laid off. That was the reason. It was not nothing personal for them, nothing personal for me. So after I understand that, I understand. You know what? Yeah, it's fine. If I was a businessman, I would have done the same thing, right? Because you don't have a choice. You can't keep everyone happy. You gotta make tough decisions.
I think in America, people, and I don't want to come off and say I don't want to be very negative about it, but like in America, people are so honestly selfish, and they carry themselves as in they are the center of the universe. And when something happens to them, a lot of the time they blame other people, they blame other circumstances, and sometimes that's the case, fine, but rarely ever do they blame themselves. But in a lot of these cases, this isn't actually about themselves, and yet people try to make it about themselves. And in that sense, I think you handled it pretty well because you realize that this is a business associated uh, decision. Really wasn't about, and the same thing kind of happened to me too. It was about the department that I was in. Uh, it's not about the individual. Rarely is it actually about the individual, especially for these big tech companies who just throw money around, right? Now they're realizing, "Oh my god, let's try to catch all the money we just threw out in the air." They need that money. So, okay, so now let's kind of reconnect it back to building an online presence. So, I think that's important because those people who get laid off, a lot of the listeners who got laid off or looking for a new job or want to reinvent themselves or just invent themselves the first time online, they need to build a web presence. They need to build a great portfolio, and you just mentioned that you help your teams kind of build their portfolios together quickly and then push them out to other companies to get jobs. So I want to dive into both those topics. So we'll start with the social media presence stuff because you've been doing a lot of that. And you mentioned before early in the podcast that you need to be sharing. I mean, one way to do it is to share a lot of your work. And another thing to do is uh, share your personality, really let them connect to you. What other things do people need to do to build their web presence?
The third thing would be interacting with other people, like you'd interact with real life. So many people. So I used to do this in the earlier stage, and this was a bigger mistake for me, which I found out I think in a month or two. That if I just post and expect people to engage on it, they won't, because they don't engage with the content. Like very less they'll engage in the content because they'll find it interesting or something. They'll engage with people, right? So if I post even a shitty meme, people will still laugh on it, not because the meme is funny and everything, because they don't know I posted it and I talk with them regularly. They know my personality, right? So if you're someone who wants to build an online presence, interact with other people. I would say don't even post like so. My first thing was I use Typefully, which is a scheduling tool to schedule tweets. I used to just have one tweet a day in the starting, which was the scheduled tweet, so that my streak is maintained. Other than that, I all used to reply, just replies. Like I had an hour of time in the day where I just used to sit, turn on the feed, and every tweet I see, I have to reply. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it is or not. You have to reply on that. That is not to connect with that person, but that is for to make a habit of saying something and coming up with an reply. It's like doing improv in comedy, right? You see something, you come up with a joke. It becomes a habit kind of thing. Once you do that, then you find the people you want to talk to, not the people you want to work with, because that's tougher. When you want something from someone, the expectation changes because now you have put them on the higher level of things. Now you can talk to them like you talk to your friends, right? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna find people you want to work with, but as friends, and you like them. Just interact with them. Don't like if you'll give someone a higher, like if you put them on pedestal on when you're talking to them, they'll feel like it, and that you might not do stuff which you normally do. For example, I do a random lot of GIF memes, right? And that's my habit. Even if I don't know the person, I'll talk to them like they are my oldest friend. Because worst case scenario, they might not like it. They may tell me, but most of the time, so then they reply or like the same thing because they expect social media to be like that. They expect people to, yeah, He is open with it, and they talk to like that. So share your work, talk to people as much as possible, and don't be afraid. Like that's I think the biggest thing. People are very afraid of judgment when it comes to online posting. They feel like, I'm gonna post this, people might judge me, or I'm posting positive things. Now I post negative things, it might not connect with the whole vibe. And I'm like, you just do random shit. Nobody cares. Even with 10K followers, nobody cares what I post. They'll remember for 4 days, I guess, max 4 days, and then they'll forget. Let's move on to something. There's so much happening right now that this Instagrammer who does this random shit, he goes into public and is, I'll lay down here on the road and people will forget me after 5 minutes, which is real in online too. Whatever you do, people will forget. That's how internet works. Uh, they'll get over something new and you'll be down with it. So do post and do this.
So wait, did you do that to me?
Like again, like I didn't know you, right? But yes, I like the whatever you said that time. I just replied on that, right? And that's what I do. Cause that
I'm just kidding with you. I'm just fucking with you.
I might have done that. That's why I was like, you know what, I might
Well, it
have
was
done that.
smart. It was a smart tactic. I'm not gonna knock it because I think it was actually a good idea, and I think I should start doing that too. I think I started doing that in the beginning and then I stopped, but um, I found a niche in the Twitter space through Framer, trying to share some stuff in Framer. All of a sudden, I'm getting 40,000 views per tweet, and I'm like, "What is going on here?" Like, I didn't intend any of this. It's actually like what I post is like really bad. Like from my standards, it's like very bad. And then I'm like, "Why is this way better than the stuff that I'm really polishing?" I don't know. It's just the Twitter algorithm. Okay, so going from there, I think the second part is you have to be able to back up your work. Like your words have to be backed up by your work. Because if you don't have quality work, but you're telling everyone that you're doing all these cool things and whatever, they're gonna eventually find out that you're a fake. And so that's where portfolio comes in, right? So that's the proof. What do you think needs to be in Pascal and I, my co-host who's not here today, uh, he has some internet issues in Mexico. They're going through a storm or something. Uh, he and I created a portfolio creation course. We taught on Maven. It was great. We tried doing. We have a book about it now. You can download online. Uh, what about portfolio creation? Do you think people need to know when they're doing this? Because this is now the time to do it. Everyone's looking for a job. How do you stand out?
You made me conscious by telling me that you ran a course and wrote a book about portfolios, and now asking me a question about portfolio.
Well, you
Part
know what?
two.
We have our framework. You know, I've reviewed thousands of portfolios at this point, exaggerating a little bit, but about a lot. A couple hundred maybe at least. And Pascal double, triple, quadruple, whatever I have. And we just kind of found patterns that we have come across and put that into a PDF book, and then it's available for people to buy and download, and it actually is pretty cool. I go back through it a lot, and I just reread it just because it's easy to
Yeah.
see everything we wrote down. But everyone has their own framework. So, like, what do you think goes into a portfolio?
So for portfolio or any kind of design work, I use this framework, which is if you have good reference, you'll have good amazing result. And everything starts from that good reference. If you pick up a so there's this saying, I guess, that if you polish shit all night, it would just become shiny shit, right? It won't become like it won't change to gold. It will be shiny, but still shit, right? So you need to find the good references. That's the thing. So when I work on portfolios, I try to find visual. Again, I come from visual side of things. Like I'm a brand designer. I was a graphic designer before that. So I try to find the references which will work with my personalities because my portfolio is an extent of it. So if I just talk about the visual side of it, I'll try to make it like I'm making my personal brand and try to create graphics according to that. That was the first part. Second part would be what to put into it, right? So that will depend specifically on what kind of job you want. So many people do this mistake that they either put all of their good work there, uh, even if there's different categories and everything, they'll just put product design, they'll put brand design and everything. And I'm like, you are looking for a product design role, only put product design products. Don't put anything else there. Because your think from an employer's perspective, right? I have hiring people. Think from that perspective. They are going seeing multiple portfolios a day. I think more than 10, 50, 20 years, something like that, right? They scroll through them. You need to get their attention, like judging the book by its cover kind of thing. So you need to have it, make it either different. So if you think you're in an industry where people are making very colorful portfolios, make a white one, make a minimal one, and send that. Try to be different in that. Second thing is they are not gonna read your content and go through everything which you've done in portfolio in detail. Not because they don't want to, because they don't have time. They have to hire so many people, so they are gonna just skip through it and just keep the main part which will come out, right? So that's why you don't add multiple projects in the first portfolio. You just add the project which you feel is amazing, and even in that, I feel you should have more visuals than copy, right? You can have a Medium article link to it afterwards in the end, that you know what, here's all the process, here's a video. Better put a video in the website or a link of a video so the person can just go through it. For example, if I talk about portfolio, my 3D folks, we made a video for them and I asked them to put on Twitter. Because I know that okay, if they make a website or a PDF, it's gonna take a longer time. You are motion people, do motion. That's your forte. That because that is also one kind of portfolio. Like you're showing your work while sharing your work. As a brand designer, what I would do, I would design my portfolio like a brand. Because that will show a way, okay, this guy can do that. Right. And so these are the simple, I think I just follow these simple things. And the fourth part is I kind of put my social media link there. And the reason for that is because it tells the employer who I am as a person also. So it shows my collaboration, my talking activities and everything to people, right? So that's important. This is something which I do with portfolios.
That's awesome. Okay, that this has been an awesome this entire episode's been baller. I love this episode because it's actually full of a lot of actionable stuff, and it gives you a great story. I want to start to wrap up, and there's two things that I want to talk about. We have a tradition on this podcast. I don't know if you listened to it. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. And at the end of the episodes now, we ask the guest, how has the world of design shaped them?
Uh, so for me, it has given me empathy. Like I was already feeling for people, but now it has given me this process of thinking, oh, what will happen? So design has helped me becoming a better human in this, so that I don't get angry a lot. Because then when I'm designing a product or a brand, I always think, okay, what the user will be thinking, like what he or she is feeling, right? And now when I'm fighting with someone or someone says something, I was like, why did that person do that? What was the reason behind it? Right. So that way I don't get angry a lot because I'm now more calmer because of this thought process. I always think what might be pushing them to do this, and that this is how design has made me much better now, because now I don't get angry, don't easily get like the layoff thing, right? In the starting I was very heartbroken, but then I started thinking of like how do you think in design solving, like okay, why this happened, what would be the reason and everything, and then you figure out, okay, oh, this is why it happens, and then you understand the whole thing. So this is how it made me better.
That's awesome. That's a great answer. Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, I'm starting YouTube streaming from this Thursday. I'm gonna like my editor is gonna have the link, and I'm gonna start with Framer. So I think your audience would be a good audience. I'm still learning Framer together on streaming. So like I've been seeing Framer a lot from a long time. I want to try it. I actually tried it, but it was very confusing to me. Just jump on it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna learn online on stream with everyone else doing together. So yeah, that's something I guess. Yeah.
That sounds like fun. I'll definitely tune in for that. Yeah, and if you have any questions about Framer, hit me up. I'm kind of
Yeah.
a Framer expert
Hopefully,
here.
yeah. Hopefully, in the end episode, we'll have an expert uh,
Yeah, yeah,
who'll
right.
who'll who'll tell us how this website could have been much better if they like if we knew some tips. But yeah, we want to make mistakes and then get you.
You know what we should do? We should do like we should bring our work or even like pull up other people's work and like do a breakdown of like what's successful and what's not successful to others so that they can learn how to build better websites on their own. We should do something like that and do like a panel or something. That'd be
And
fun.
then I also have one more fun video idea which I
Yeah.
want to do. So this one is gonna be in Hindi, so I'm gonna obviously gonna go with some Indian folks here. But the idea was flow versus framer.
Ooh.
And I
Okay.
know the no design agency I was. The one of the co-founder is a Webflow expert who was one of the first people who brought Webflow to India. Like he have taught I think more than 5,000 people Webflow, and he has taught me also. So I was like, you know what, I want you to get on a stream. And then I know a framework expert in India. I was like, who also teaches framework. I was like, I want you both to get on stream, and then do a video about building a similar website in Webflow and framework, and then see who
Oh,
does it
wow.
faster, the pros and cons. Because this is a very big fight right now. People, again, designers prefer Framer a lot, but normal people are coders are preferring Webflow. So I want to show that because it's a fun episode to see versus.
Yeah, you know what? I don't understand why people are so like they like are so what's the word? They have like a side that they pick other than the fact that it's like just what they use because so many people can, it doesn't matter if you use Sketch or Figma, whatever. It doesn't matter if you use Webflow or Framer, but there are so many people have like anger towards the other tool. I don't know why that
No,
is.
not angers, but it's the tribe community, right? You want
Okay,
a part of
that's
a
better.
community.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
tribal.
So you just want to get with the framer community because then you can interact more, talk with more people, get
Mhm.
more framer people, right? If you it's the same thing, right? What is it? Yeah. If you have 7 best friends, none of them are best friends, right? Like that kind of thing. And if
Mhm.
you have 7 favorite apps, none of them are your favorite apps because you have 7, right? You need to have one. That's the number, right? And so if you want to make a community, you want to part of something. So a framework person will follow me only if they see framework. If they see Webflow, they're like, this guy does everything when it comes to, so, and they'll just move and leave, right? And that's why people pick tribes where they get Figma because now they have content. They can go pro Figma or anything against Figma. They just start fighting, and that's why I wrote this tweet that people are treating softwares like they are in a relationship with them, and I just go so become so what are those a word so sensitive about the softwares when people talk about it. I was like, why? It's just a software. Like I use Adobe Illustrator, Corel Draw, Figma, Sketch. I had my XD. I tried work we need to do. Doesn't matter software, but now it becomes a bigger part of community because tools also connect with people, right? So that's yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Like in 3 years, who knows? There's be another tool that comes out that does it
If it
better, and then we also learn that, and it's a whole big mess all over again. But
I'm
whatever.
waiting for Figma config. If the AI thing comes in Figma itself, because people are saying there's a rumor that it might launch direct websites from Figma, and if it does,
Oh, yeah, that would be pretty good. That'd be great. It's like Framework kind of is Figma, but for web, and hopefully Figma can just go right to web because then why have another tool?
well, they are with Adobe now, and Adobe has a history of doing that, crushing other tools which do the same thing. So let's see.
Yeah, let's see. All right, cool. Thanks, Rahul. Rahul, right? Did I
No
say it
worries,
right?
Vishal. Both. Yeah, you said it right second time. Yes.
Okay, Rahul.
Yeah, the confusion actually comes from Mexico, right? Because that's Raul without the H,
Ah, okay.
and
Cool,
that's
cool.
where the same name issue is there. But no
I I
worries. Yeah.
I just hate saying somebody's name wrong because then I feel bad about it, and because I was told I think I told it on another podcast before, but when I was in high school or no, I was in middle school, the substitute teacher was calling roll call the names, and then they said my name wrong, and so I didn't answer. And then they go, "Did anyone not get called?" And I'm like, "Me, you didn't call me." And she goes, "No, I did call you, but it wasn't pronounced correctly." And she's like, "Don't ever let anyone mispronounce your name. It's your name. It's who you are. It's the one thing you have." And I was like, okay." And so now it just kind of stuck with me. But anyways, thank you so
Yeah.
much for being on the pod. We'll definitely have to have you again, and maybe we can collaborate or jam on some Framer stuff soon.
Will do. And thank you for inviting me. It's been a fun morning. And definitely, I'm gonna send you some famous stuff now.
Yeah, absolutely. And send me all the links that you want me to post, and I'll put that in the show notes.
Will do. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.